Hey everyone, my name is Shane McCardle. I'm the CEO of Kongsberg Digital, and we're here today at Future Digital Twin in Houston, and I'm very excited to be sharing the couch with Krishnan from Shabik today.
Thank you, Shane. So my name is Krishnan Sankaranarayanan. I work for Shabik. I lead the digital transformation for engineering, R&D, finance, legal, shared services, and HR. And I also have visibility on some of the what we call SBU, strategic business units of the business, and manufacturing a certain geography. So really happy to be here today.
Wow, that's some remit going across all R&D, manufacturing, finance. Was that intentional that digitalization should go across all of those business functions and business lines, or?
It is. Yeah. So we are structured in a way that it allows focus and use of synergies. And also because all of these are so distinct, it requires a certain complex global view on things. So that's why I was the one who was put in this position.
And you're recently into this position, or?
Well, I've been doing digital transformation since 2020.
2020, yeah.
And in 2020, I was working on one domain.
A veteran.
Yeah, so basically looking at the R&D function, how to bring the solutions in. And last year, I got everything else also on my plate.
Okay. And where do you see... Where do you go after first? I mean, what business function do you feel is the one coming from R&D?
Yeah.
Let's say if you look at operations, where in operations would you go after first from Shabik perspective?
I think operations is obviously where you have that direct translation to value. If you can increase margin, if you can increase production, if you can reduce downtime, that's something you will see on your income statement immediately.
Yeah.
Similarly, if you can do a better job in getting better prices, so that's really the business aspect.
True, right?
You can get that revenue to go up in your profitability, and you can compete better. In terms of other functions, if you can transform them, or if you can, again, work the contracts, work the procurement, because as a company, we procure enormous amounts of raw materials, materials for the plants. If you can do a better job there, that's the line of sight. In other areas, I would say it's more an efficiency play, which is sometimes harder to quantify.
But you do see as an industry that there's a need to change the way we do things today. I mean, that's the ambition here.
Absolutely. I think if you look at the three mega trends, right? One, sustainability.
Yeah.
And I think digitalization plays a huge role in that.
Absolutely.
The other one, digitalization itself, right? It is a mega trend. It's changing the way we do work. The other one is associated with the whole energy and chemical space. The pressures we're getting there, in one sense, is deglobalization, changing role of China, margin pressure, structural changes, and digitalization is we view digitalization as one of the enablers to come up with a more competitive position.
Yeah.
So definitely we see that as part of our strategy. And I think most people in the industry are having a similar mindset.
I think definitely. And the learnings we have had great panels and great sessions here today at the conference. I mean, when people talk about we shouldn't get in our way of just starting a digitalization project. Some people talked about, we went into these multi-year programs trying to get our data correct or perfect was the word that people were using. And then other people are coming with this contrarian view, go, no. We have the data we have. The data we use today helps us operate and maintain these assets and perform cutovers and perform our yearly planning. It's good enough.
Yes.
We just need to start. Is this something you also buy into? You believe in this?
Absolutely. See, the thing is, you don't have the luxury of building a foundational program and doing that for 10 years and then building everything on top of that.
Exactly.
And the feedback we always get is when we show a timeline is, can you do it in half the time? So the guiding principle here is fastest path to value.
Fastest path to value, yeah.
And 80-20 is good enough. And why is that? Because the end state of digitalization, it is not clear. Every day, every month, something new comes on. And if you keep latching on to that, you're not going to be able to deliver today. So you need to do an 80-20 kind of approach.
Yeah.
Where you say, I'm going to deliver something here, freeze, deliver, freeze, deliver, freeze, deliver. And you keep going like that. You build that
iterative process.
It's an iterative process, and then it becomes part of the way you work, and it'll change the way you do things.
I have to ask you, I came from research many, many, many years ago. And one of the things I remember my supervisor was saying, don't own the solution, own the challenge.
Yes.
Because sometimes we can go down a rabbit hole and we we have this sunk investment fallacy in a way, where we go, well, no, we need to make it work. We need to make it work.
Yep.
With digitalization, you need to know when to pivot.
Yes.
In many regards, because if you keep trying to brute force a solution, and people tend to get caught up in this, and that's something that's very difficult from a management perspective, where you can go, well, we started this, but it didn't work out, but we pivoted to this, and this suddenly worked out. How do you drive that kind of mindset, this innovative,
It's an excellent question. And I think one of the things is, if you look at all the literature out there, you talk to the consultants, they'll all tell you the same thing. You had to be agile. Yeah. And you had to fail fast. That's part of the whole agile.
Yeah.
So the way you build it is you do your POCs. And the POCs have multiple objectives. One is to show whether the technology can work. Also, can you figure out how to work with your data?
Yeah.
Can you get a business proposition out of that? Are people interested in solving this problem? Because they may have told you they want it. And then the question comes, okay, now how do you take it farther?
Yeah.
And are you going to integrate that? So the mindset of failing has to be there. And that's actually a very difficult mindset, because
it is.
When you, in a sense, sometimes the spend for a complete project is going to be similar to a capital project.
Yeah.
But you don't want a capital project to go over budget or fail. Yeah. So that's why you have to fail early, you have to abandon, and then you may actually come up with some sunk costs. Yeah. Then once you said, hey, there's a better shiny little thing in the market, I want to bring that in now. Do you do it, or do you first milk the other one?
That's true.
So it becomes a very strategic dialogue, but there's a lot of tactical aspects to this as well.
And I think the learning, you should never overlook the learning, even if it didn't work out the way you wanted.
Exactly.
The learning has moved you forward in some way. And we often talk about, if we talk to a customer or any type of operator, and they go, we've invested here. I said, great, but you need to reuse that. It's not about replacing the stuff you've done. It's not replacing the data science project you've done over here. It's about taking everything you've done and putting it into a context where you can actually scale it, and scale it to multiple users, multiple thousands of users. And that was a question I was going to just springboard from. You mentioned starting with a POC, being very agile around that POC, but how do we go from proof of concept to proof of scale? What are you looking for in a partner or vendor or technology stack? So when you go there,
one thing is, let's assume we agree on the endpoint, which is actually a different discussion altogether, because we don't have an endpoint.
Yeah.
But what we look for is, if you have something that's mature, you want to have it embedded into your work processes, embedded to your strategic objectives, embedded with respect to your KPIs. So you want to be able to do that. The other thing is, you want partners who speak your language.
Yeah.
So if people speak, and this was the confusion early on, when I told people I work in digital, they said, but you're not an IT person. I said, oh, I'm not. And this is not an IT problem at all.
No.
It's a business transformation.
Exactly.
So if the partners speak only in terms of algorithms and let's say the IT language, then we can't even put them in front of our senior executives or our stakeholders, because they will not understand what's going on. So the language has to be there.
I think that is a commonality, as a denominator across the board, that the main understanding is vital to building trust.
Exactly. And the other thing is, once something's embedded, we want it to work. Or if it doesn't, people need to be able to respond and fix it, because then it becomes part of a critical operational system. Yeah. And that can't be down for a week or 2 weeks. It has to be maybe down for an hour or a day, depending on what system you've embedded.
I think that's a very good point. So if I go back to the first point, gone are the days where a cool tech company shows up and goes, give us all your data and tell us what to do with it, and we'll build you a little application. Yeah. That's gone. You need domain industry experts, so industrial software, I suppose, a partner that can come in, speak the language. And then the last part, I think, is very much overlooked. We work in a very safety-critical, business-critical industries. Of course, Sabic, worldwide. The technology as a front end can be shiny, can be great, but the infrastructure from a support point of view, that support 24, that L0, L1, L2, that if there's a shutdown, if there's a downtime on some of your software, the tech stack, you have someone to call. You have an entire team behind you, as we said, a follow the sun principle. Yeah. That's very much overlooked, because back to your first point, this is business transformative technology, which means it's business critical, which means it has to have an uptime 100% or 99%. That's a good point, not to be overlooked. And I think, come from research myself as well, these small companies, I've seen there was a lot of excitement around them in 2020, 2021, but the reality has come home to roost to go, how are you going to scale across an organization the size of Sawbuck? How are you going to make sure that your uptime with your technology is there? It becomes quite difficult, and I think partnerships then come into play. How can these smaller but maybe more agile, more exciting type companies can play with bigger, more mature companies? And how do you manage your ecosystem of partners? Do you force an openness on them through contracts? Do you just say, if you want to be, the future is an open ecosystem? I'm kind of curious there.
So we don't force anyone to do anything, but we ask them.
Probably too strong a word.
We ask them to do certain things, and we evaluate how is the culture jiving with the way we expect things to be done.
Interesting. Yeah.
So because there has to be a compatibility.
Yeah.
And as you said, wherever the sun goes, right, somebody needs to be working it because our operations are global. But there is a process that we had to follow to vet them on various aspects, right, technical and other aspects as well. But a partner at some point to me is someone who will start speaking our language, right, and will understand the Sawbuck jargon because they've been with us so long.
Yeah.
And that's what you really want. So at some point, you don't know what hard hat you're wearing, right? It doesn't matter anymore.
Exactly. The success is a combined success for both parties. No, I think that's quite interesting. That's quite interesting. Digital, obviously, as a forward-leaning element to it, but the culture element for long term, because these are multi-year programs.
Yes.
If you don't have the chemistry to go through the ups and downs of what you're absolutely going to experience. There's not one operator out here or vendor out here that hasn't gone through an up and a down in one of these programs. So I think it's a very important point, that chemistry, that jargon, speaking the language, that's an important thing for everyone to understand if it's going to be sustained long term. Can you tell me a use case or where Sawbuck is actually playing in the digital space today? Are you or AI? I know a lot of people here listening are very curious.
I'll talk about something that was in the annual report a couple of years ago.
That's good.
And which I think most of the industry is doing, asset healthcare.
Yeah.
So preventive maintenance. So you have essentially some of the sub elements of a digital twin, right? We just don't call it digital twin, but it's a sub element, and that's how you build it up.
Yeah.
But it tells you something about how it's working, and at what point maintenance needs to be done based on some critical information that comes from that. And then before it becomes a problem, you can actually intervene. And now this is all open loop, which means that the recommendation comes, a human evaluates it.
Keep the human in the loop. Okay.
You keep the human in the loop. Now, what's the future state? We don't know. I can only speculate that at some point you may say, maybe at some point this will get, just like a smart fridge will order your milk or put it in Instacart.
Yeah.
Maybe it's going to place an order for a compressor spare part or 3D print it, right? If we get to that level of maturity.
Of course, yeah.
And that's because those things are also very important. Now you can see the big value of these kind of things is when you start scaling across domains. But clearly, as I said in the annual report, we are working in the manufacturing space. We are working also in other spaces, obviously.
I think you said something very interesting there, where you talked about, can this asset performance, asset monitoring tool actually order a spare part? That's where you start expanding it into the work space. So from an algorithm that's doing maybe remaining useful life or predictive maintenance element, to how actually do we use that insight? Do we have to put it in the context of a job to be done in many regards? And then maybe it's a human where you just get a ping, hey, this is going to be 4 more hours left in this piece of equipment. Let's go check the warehouse. Does it have it?
Exactly.
But eventually you might be able to order that spare part, check the warehouse, order that spare part, and maybe even send a robot into the field to actually do the replacement. So I think that foundational element of understanding what job is to be done is critically overlooked in many regards. That critical thinking needs to be done.
Exactly.
On it. But fantastic. Any AI stories you'd like to share? Because there's a lot of AI hype out there. There's a lot of there's two camps of it'll never scale in an industry like ourselves, or it's going to completely transform and everyone's going to be subservient to the AI overlords down the line.
I think it's really both. I think the nature of our industry will change.
Yeah.
And I think the canonical example is, what is the role of a record label these days with the music artists? It's totally different.
Completely.
And how did Amazon, for example, change how you buy books and other things? It's turned it around in ways nobody ever saw coming. So what do you see here? What we're doing today is really working at the efficiency level. So we're taking that horse-driven buggy, changing the horse out with a robot dog, right? I'm sure you've seen the memes on the internet. You'll get a little bit better. Fine. Because we're thinking we have a work process, we'll make that work process slightly better, and of course it helps you. But we need to figure out how to get an automobile or change that horse-driven or robot dog-driven buggy by something else.
Exactly.
And that only gets there when you get a couple of layers of work process efficiency, then you'll start thinking about, well, you know what, maybe I can just dump the buggy, sit on top of the robot dog. And maybe I don't want it to have legs, I want it to have wheels. And well, now you have a motorbike.
Exactly.
So it's the same thing here, right? So if you have a plant and you've got sufficient digitalization there that you trust all the signals, you can have the operators think about different things.
Yeah.
So and then do you need all the operators there continually? Probably not. And in fact, there are industry cases actually now for companies that they run all their operations globally from a control center.
Oh yeah.
And then who's on site? Well, it's a skeleton crew for things where you do need that physical intervention.
So almost dark plants, almost there.
Exactly. And then you can take it one step farther. You can say, well, what's the dog and man plant? Right. So why is the dog there? The dog is there to prevent the man from touching anything. The man is there to prevent the dog, or to feed the dog rather.
Yeah.
Right. Because the plant runs itself.
Exactly.
Right? So that could be a future state.
And I think just to comment on that one as well, where we talked about, or someone mentioned on a panel, I can't remember, I think it was the second panel of the day, where they said this can be a gigantic kind of program and people can get very deterred, you know, and they said, don't think fully autonomous facilities, think about what you can automate. So it's a layering of automating away this process, automating this process. Suddenly you have an entire sub-layer. Okay, this is all automated now. So it's done.
Yeah.
So taking this in incremental steps towards that North Star of a fully autonomous facility, with the understanding that there's going to continue to be humans in the loop, whether it's in a remote center or whether you have a skeleton crew on site. I think that's key as well. It's not that that's fully autonomous.
No, exactly.
In the near term.
You will never get, I think, to that point it's fully automated, fully autonomous.
Yeah.
You'll always want to have a human override or a human check or something.
Safety barrier there.
Safety barrier for certain things, but you can automate a lot of the processes. Something is going to go down, the order gets placed.
Yeah.
The operator gets a signal saying, hey, this is going to happen. Go schedule a turnaround crew, or maybe based on whatever signals, well, this is the kind of crew you need because they did such a great job previously. But it would be very interesting to see if we can change that model to say, there is a temperature anomaly in Africa.
Yeah.
Probability of a hurricane hitting the Gulf Coast is X%. We need to start doing certain things, and the plant starts going into partial shutdown mode.
Yeah.
Or maybe saying, this is a recommendation.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, that's a fantastic, get it all scheduled for you, the reports, you know, the risk analysis around something like this. But that's doable.
It is doable. Actually, there's a video which comes from your company, which is the guy wakes up, he has breakfast, and then he gets the call, right?
Exactly.
The digital twin has identified a problem.
It does it today, you know.
Right.
So, yeah, it does it today.
You can just think through, and probabilities of scenarios, and then what are the possible mitigating steps you can do, and then you simulate it, and then you can take it anywhere. Once you have a foundation, right, you can take it anywhere.
Yeah. Fantastic. I've taken up so much of your time, Krishnan. Really great insights. I think Sabak are definitely one of those companies that are leading the way in what we're doing in digitalization. I'm very excited to see where you take it over the next couple of years. And I'm looking forward to hearing you speak at the Future Digital Twin next year.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Shane.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you.